and welcome to the ID Talk podcast. My name is Peter Counter, and I am the editor-in-chief of FindBiometrics, which is reporting live from the Future Travel Experience Global Conference in Las Vegas. Eric Weiss, our multimedia editor, was on the show floor this week speaking to the biometrics and identity leaders, and in this special episode of ID Talk, recorded at FTE, he interviews Lisa Sullivan, Senior Vice President, Travel and Transport for IDEMIA I&S North America. Sullivan shows off IDEMIA's recently launched travel solution, the ID2Travel platform, alongside some of the company's other border control innovations, before delving into the key opportunities for boosting adoption of digital travel credentials and talking about how mobile ID can empower travelers to take control of their identities. The interview concludes with Sullivan's observations on the segmentation of travel culture and how it will affect the identity industry. They pack a ton of engaging and important discussion on identity and travel into this mini podcast episode, so let's get to it. Without further ado, here is FindBiometrics' Eric Weiss in conversation with IDEMIA's Lisa Sullivan, directly from FTE in Las Vegas.
So I'm here again at FTE Global, and I'm here with Lisa Sullivan, who is the SVP for Travel and Transport for IDEMIA. So thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Eric. I'm so glad to talk with you today.
And just to get started, so what are you showcasing here at FTE this year? So what did you bring to the event?
Awesome. So, we brought a lot of different capabilities to the event this year. A couple that you might have seen just a moment ago in our booth are actually our new capability, ID2Travel, which we launched just this past week. And that's really providing essentially identity as a service to provide an interoperable framework throughout the travel experience. So you can see some of the capabilities of that as we're enrolling people, utilizing those credentials throughout the journey in a very secure and effective way. You probably also saw our capabilities that we are partnered with deploying with the TSA called the CAT2. And that is actually utilizing both biometrics as well as the ability to read mobile driver's license with all the new exciting things that are coming out in the market. We are testing those and starting to roll them out. If you went to the McCarran TSA event yesterday, you saw some of their latest installments of that, as well as the AutoCAT gate. So those are just a couple of the things we're showing this year that we're pretty excited about.
So you've talked about digital credentials. Why are digital credentials going to be so important in air travel? Is it going to be difficult to get passengers to opt into the technology if they're not too necessarily familiar with it? So what do you need to do to boost those adoption rates?
Great question. So, I really think that digital identities are critical as we start to move forward with the traveling consumers as we kind of return to post-COVID. And one of the things that's really important is you have some people that aren't always thinking about, opting into biometrics. So a mobile identity is allowing a consumer to essentially utilize their driver's license and just have biometrics check that day if they don't feel comfortable with having their biometrics in a governmental gallery of sorts. So if you heard Jason Lim earlier today, as well as CBP talk at their talk, they're seeing this as a possibility to cover more travelers, so you can have one-to-one and also one-to-N. So we're really thinking about these capabilities to cover both sets of travelers to get the broadest set of people into this faster, more efficient way to traverse the travel system. So mobile identity is just a critical way, I think, to reach more consumers that might have privacy concerns with governmental having access to their information.
And so it really helps just build trust in a technology and kind of get them used to the idea that they can allow people to use their face and they still have a degree of control over their privacy and their personal information.
100%. So think about, a lot of the adoption that's happened in the financial space where we're all using our edge devices on our mobile to, use facial rec to get into our banking information and the like. This allows the consumer to store that information locally. No one is storing it out, a gallery and so forth. So by using a mobile identity, you're storing that information locally. So it allows some people who might not want to opt into some of the secure traveler programs to have another form of having that faster, frictionless experience.
What are some of the other technologies besides just digital IDs that can really help improve the passenger experience? In particular, I know you've got M-Face here. Is there anything else that really moves things forward beyond just having something on your phone?
Yeah, I do think that you really have to think about it in a couple different veins, right? So there's the consumer element, so these different capabilities that empower the consumer by really keeping hold of their identity and opting in when they want to from a usage standpoint. But then there's also technologies you have to have on the endpoint. So you mentioned, M-Face, the CAT systems that are used as security checkpoints, having all of those different endpoints to then utilize that mobile identity or the biometric is key for that flow. And I think one of the things that we think is really key with all of these technologies is that we all evolve them to a standard so that you don't necessarily have to take a monolithic approach and you can have multiple vendors all interoperating in a system together holistically with a framework based on standards.
So obviously the past couple of years have been a turbulent one for the travel industry, and now we're still at the end of December 2021. So looking back, what was kind of the biggest trend of the past year, and what do you see as being the biggest trend moving forward into 2022?
I think one of the trends I'm most excited about in 2021 is the type of return to travel we've seen. I think historically, pre-COVID, people have really segmented the population into kind of that road warrior business traveler and then leisure. And I think what we're really seeing is as travel returns, you have a much broader spectrum of travelers, and you can't just think about them in these two buckets. And those leisure travelers actually are coming in and traveling in different ways, traveling more frequently, traveling in different modes. And I think that we're going to continue to see different segmentation as we kind of move forward. And with that segmentation and different generations traveling and so forth, there's always a different, openness to, utilizing these new technologies and so forth. So I do think that as we're looking to the future, a couple of things that are going to be hypercritical for us is to really think about the change management, right? Because if you're a traveling consumer, you might not be like us following up all the new trends and things that are coming out, and you want to have a consistent experience throughout the journey. But as we're all working as an industry to roll out these new technologies, we do have to think about that consumer experience. And if they're experiencing something different in Atlanta and then they fly into LaGuardia and it's not consistent, we do just need to keep educating and being communicative about how they interact with the new tech. So I think change management is going to be a really critical element for us to make sure consumers adopt this in a meaningful way. And the other thing I would say, to echo some of the comments already noted at the conference so far, is that the technology is here. We all have all the critical components. We're all trying to work towards, driving standards together so it's all interoperable. The piece that's going to be critical is enabling the government from a policy standpoint to move forward with acquiring and improving these technologies, because that's always a long lead time. And I think you heard, Jason and others from CBP and TSA even mentioned this morning that the biggest thing they think could be a stopper here is red tape. So we've got to make sure that we're supporting our governmental entities and being able to move at the speed that they need to so this technology can roll out more quickly, and we're not sitting here in 2025 waiting for the things to go out that we have available today.
So it sounds like what you're saying, it's not even about the technology this year, it's about getting people to use it and getting people to accept it.
Exactly. Whether that's governmental, IT and policy acquisitions people, or in 2022 making sure the traveling public knows how to interact with it.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks so much, Eric. I can't wait to see the podcast.
And so concludes our interview with Lisa Sullivan, Senior Vice President, Travel and Transport for IDEMIA I&S North America. To learn more about the topics discussed in this podcast, visit na.idemia.com. And to hear more interviews straight from the Future Travel Experience Conference, stay tuned to FindBiometrics, where you can participate in our 19th annual Year in Review survey. The FindBiometrics Year in Review is bigger than ever this year, and it's culminating in a full-day virtual event with prizes to be given away to survey respondents. So check out the show notes for a link and take that survey. I want to thank Lisa for participating in this episode, and thank you to Eric Weiss for conducting the interview. Our podcast theme music is by Logomrad. I have been your host, Peter Counter. Thank you for listening to the ID Talk podcast.